Greetings, YouTube! And welcome to the Mad Pod. We are still calling it that. Fuck you. So yeah, as ever, I am Jed T.E. Rhodes. You have not yet managed to get rid of me, and some of you fuckers have tried! You haven't really, but, fuck it. But yeah, so today, I am joined by a voice that many of you will be familiar with, from fan vids, fan films, fan audios, and just sticking his doctory face all over the place. Hail Hydra! It's George Guidera!
Hi, I'm George. People know me. Hi.
People do. I mean, to be fair, his face is literally everywhere.
Which is weird. I mean, people have to be looking at my mug all the time now.
And you know what the thing is? It's not even your mug in motion in like fan films. It's like 99% freaking fan audios at the moment, dude. It's brilliant.
No, all the fan films that have my mug in motion. There's one that has my emotion. The others are very old stuff.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, that's getting on now a bit, isn't it? Like we sort of sit here thinking about it as though it's relatively recent, but actually, what you filmed that in 2018?
2018, 2019. I think maybe going by some stuff I remember, I think it might be 2019 because I remember, 2019 because we filmed it early on and then it almost didn't come out. Then it did come out. Yay!
Fair enough. But yeah, no. So that's not really recent now, given the amount of shit that's happened to the planet since then.
I think it's just that weird gap of, you think about you think pre-COVID, and then there's just COVID, and then there's post-COVID. You try and kind of block out the COVID parts.
No, I see your point. I mean, to be fair, I must be the only person on the planet who didn't mind the lockdown part of COVID. Like, the whole pandemic that killed millions of people thing, could have done without that. But, just in terms of, the job that I was doing, the way that I was doing the job, and the fact that I spent a metric fuck ton of time with my family, I actually rather enjoyed that time period.
I can accept that. I didn't get to see a lot of my friends, and obviously I am but an only child. So
yeah, no, I mean, this is it. Is that it's one of those things where a lot of people had one way of living that got sort of affected negatively, and then there were some people like me who got to see the positive side. So I'm very lucky in that respect. Anyway,
one of them we video called a lot, and I got to talk to you.
I mean, yeah, there is that. But tell you what. So we'll start at the top, because we do have a structure here on the Mad Pod, loose and flappy and frilly as it is.
You having a structure. This really is a different time.
I fucking know, right? Oh god. But yeah, so obviously anyone who pays attention to the Doctor Who fan film scene isn't going to be watching this podcast because nobody watches this channel.
I do.
So for the two people who watch this channel, you probably have seen George Guidera, who is, among other things, formerly the Blonde Doctor for DW 2012, currently the Blonde Doctor on Overton Audios and DWEM, currently the Fairy Tale Doctor for Instability Productions, his own channel.
Yeah, formerly the Waistcoat Doctor, but now he's called Fairy Tale, for anyone who doesn't know.
Indeed. And also playing another Doctor who we'll get into that later on in the podcast.
Technically two other Doctors that we probably have to get into later on.
But we will get into that later on.
And if anyone's interested, I'm also Rassilon for Josh Coy's Doctor Who fan audios, and I am also the Bearded Menace, also known as the Master in Doctor Who Dark Days.
Yeah, so quite a varied degree of stuff with more cool stuff on the way, obviously. But some of that we won't talk about because I don't mind spoiling stuff, but I imagine some people out there, I'd like to hope there's some people out there who give a damn about us spoiling things that we're going to do on here. So, yeah. So, to begin with, then, George Guidera is my only fan.
I pay a hell of a monthly subscription.
Which, but obviously, like, that's not the sum totality of your fandom. I feel, forgive me from being egotistical, but it is kind of an interesting thing to note that you actually were aware of the stuff that Man at Desk pretty
I
much.
I was aware of your stuff for a while. Also, sorry, just want to mention because I had a brain fart. I've been very busy today. I've also heavily involved in TT Productions,
Yeah.
especially in their current series, Tusks of London, where I play Sydney and damage me throat all the time. And I've had
Oh, God.
various roles here and there. Yeah, sorry, I had a complete brain fart, and I was saying all the Time Lordy roles, and I was like, oh, I forgot to mention TT, and I got to mention TT.
I mean, to be fair, like, I do a fair bit for TT these days, but that's kind of like we were listing off all the various Time Lordy stuff that you play, and like you, have you played a Time Lord for TT yet?
Yes, actually, yes. I have played a. I've played a. I think it was a Castellan. I can't remember in the most recent My Dear Pip episode that came out, where I. Spoiler alert! I go boom. But no,
Oh,
that was
so
that.
wait, we're talking Castellan Spandrel, Castellan No, not the Mind Probe, or some other Castellan.
I assume just some other Castellan, but if Matthew Chambers wants to like message me or comment on this and just explain if I actually was one of the canon Castellan, oh, that's a great sentence, canon
Chambers,
Castellan.
Chambers, Chambers. You fucking tell me. Was he one of the canon Castellans? Was he Spandrel? Was he No, not the Mind Probe? Who was he? Tell me. Okay, but joking about playing the Castellan side. So yeah, you do a lot, but like, so tell us a bit about you and the Doctor Who fandom, if you don't mind.
So I got into the Doctor Who fandom rather late, or at least what people consider late, considering in fact I am 26. So my first ever Doctor Who episode was Midnight. That was the
Ooh.
first one I ever watched. Because this is the thing, I was a very scared kid. I was an only child, so obviously I was the parents will protect, must protect at all costs. I mean, obviously parents protect their kids, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Um, so I was, despite the fact my favorite thing was Yu-Gi-Oh at the time, I was really, I used to get scared quite easily. And my parents told me, "This is Doctor Who. This used to scare us so much when we were younger." Because my mum was born in the 70s, and my dad was born in the 50s, and so I was like, "Oh, okay, okay." And they were like, "Oh, we don't know if we want you watching this because it was, it might be a bit scary." Obviously, I was quite young, so it wasn't it wasn't like I was 13 and they said, "Oh, I don't know, George, if you should be watching this, you might get scared." No, it was the appropriate age to say to your kid, "Hey, maybe don't watch this, you might get scared."
Okay.
So for ages I avoided it, but there was always that sort of thing where I was curious about it. Like I remember once I saw the cliffhanger for uh Bad Wolf,
Ooh.
and I was like, and I saw like just the next time trailer. And bear in mind, I didn't know what was going on. I was just like, oh, okay, I'm in. I kind of want to see it, but obviously, I didn't have the thing to go, Mum, Dad, when is that on? No, I just was like, okay, I'll just assume I'll catch it. Obviously, didn't. Eventually, just one day, I was really, really ill, and I had one of those beds that it wasn't like a bunk bed, but it was like a bed with a desk underneath.
Yeah.
So I was really ill. BBC Three was playing some stuff, and it was playing Doctor Who. I wasn't feeling too well, and I couldn't be bothered to go down the little ladder and grab the remote. So I ended up just watching Midnight, and I was like, "Oh, this is good. I kind of like this." I thought, "Okay, I'll try watching it again." I'm pretty sure I missed Turn Left, but I caught Stolen Earth and Journey's End, and I remember this makes me laugh all the time. Afterwards, they played Doctor Who Confidential after the end of Stolen Earth, and I was convinced that Russell T Davies was the new Doctor. Because I didn't. Because every time it would be after the credit has gone. So I used to just look and be like, "Oh, is he the new Doctor or something?" I was like, because I didn't, because I was only just starting to comprehend. Oh, so that's why the Doctor looks different or something. I didn't understand why I'd walk past DVDs and see different faces or anything. I never made sense.
Hmm.
And now, yeah, Doctor Who has quite frankly changed my life. It made me want to do more creative things. It
Mm-hmm.
influenced the like I did my A levels at a school that focused more on the creative side of things, which I met a lot of people. I learned some skills, and I got involved in doing fan stuff, and lo and behold, now we are here, and I'm absolute Doctor Who obsessive.
Fair one.
And Paul McGann's the
So,
best Doctor.
so obviously, like that's like canon Doctor Who, like real person
Yes.
Doctor Who. But obviously the other side of that story is, fan Doctor Who and your sort of relationship with that. So tell us a bit about that. And I realize this is me accidentally going on an ego trip. Don't just ego trip me, but
Oh, I'll start off, but trust me, it will get into a lot of ego tripping, which I know isn't your goal, but we both knew it was going to happen. Um, no, so in terms of fan stuff, I can't remember. The thing is, I remember one of the first people I started watching who made like fan content is now quite a controversial figure to say the least.
oh god, yeah. But I mean, to be fair, like if this was
So
like the early days of YouTube, I think that particular controversial figure and his filming partner were, two
But,
of
but
the
I mentioned a good one. So in terms of like fan film stuff, I don't remember how I discovered it. I think I used to there was it because I used to watch Star Wars kind of fan stuff, but not even like films, just people doing fan made lightsaber fights, and I used to find that
Ryan
cool.
versus
Yeah,
Dorkman.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Oh, and
Dorkman fucking got into a really bad injury apparently. Like the reason there was never a Ryan versus Dorkman 3 was because he really did himself a serious injury.
oh
Like
shit,
could have died serious injury. Like they were talking about fucking crowdfunding for it for ages. So
Jesus.
yeah, no, it's really sad. But anyway, so to sort of continue then. So
Yeah. So yeah.
you watched all these like
So I
lightsaber
knew
dueling stuff.
I knew fan stuff existed, or at least I knew people did Star Wars fan stuff. So I want to see people did like Doctor Who fan stuff, and I used to see the spoofs. And besides the controversial figure, my main points of reference for that, I used to watch Sebastian Bird and Thomas Rhys Kane, and they were, uh, they were really really big influences to me. I used to love watching their stuff, and to me, it used to just be really cool. Watching their fan films, and then it'd be a case of if they'd cross over like another person or something, I'd like John Hutch or something, or of this. I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, and then through that I found even more fan films. I used to watch the stuff Chris Walker Thompson used to do,
Mm,
uh, and obviously eventually I discovered the projection room,
of course.
Chris Hoyer and all that stuff, who I've only ever had some interactions with online, but they are lovely people.
Oh no, I,
And
I I knew those guys in person, like absolutely like friendliest blokes ever,
mm,
and like really, they were some of the Wilderness Years fan filmmakers, and they did absolute wonders, continuing like the
and
carrying the torch, I believe the term
Yeah.
is.
And I don't know whether I'm over analyzing something, but I remember once because I used to research fan doctors because there was the Doctor Who fan film wiki,
Mm.
and I used to look at the doctors on that, and I was like, oh okay, okay, okay. And I remember reading something about Chris Hoyle's doctor because at the time, guy walking around in a velvet jacket and a waistcoat, I kind of can't help but be digging the style. So,
Yeah.
uh, and I was reading about how there was like a prequel to his first episode that was going to explain how his doctor began and everything. And I just by chance on the Projection Room Facebook page just asked something about this, and he went, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And about a few months later, he released it onto the Facebook page as like kind of like a mini kind of novel kind of thing. And I kind of sit
Mm.
there and I think probably just overanalyze before. Like, did I have something to do with that? That'd be nice if I did.
I
But
mean, that's one of those things where it's entirely possible that you reminded him of it. So why
but
not?
yeah, so obviously through them, and I'll say this now: I've never met Thomas Rees Kane, but I've met Sebastian Bird multiple times. We follow each other on Twitter, we have each other on Facebook. And when we have spoken, absolutely lovely guy. I have to give him a lot of credit, and I just want to say this now: if he ever does by chance hear this, uh, great fan filmmaker, great cosplayer as well, whether it's male or female cosplay, looking awesome. So just wanted to give that shout out because, yeah. And then obviously came a day where I just by chance discovered a fan film called I can't remember which one of yours was my first. I don't know if it was Code Red or not. I am pretty convinced the first one I watched was an Anthony one. It might have been The Hunted.
Because Hunted was the one that you based The Hunt on.
Wi-
So I feel like that's you did literally leave a comment. I could literally go back and find Bebe George's comments on the
Babbage.
Longbarrow Brothers fan films. If you want me to go back and read these comments, I could
No,
fucking
we don't need to. We don't need to.
Baby George. But
We don't need to.
I have a feeling that the Hunt was probably one of your that Hunted was probably one of the first ones that
It was one.
you.
It was on the first, and that was so set the mood. I'd been aware of fan films for a good while at this point, obviously, and I even had like Chris Hoyle's on DVD at this point,
Hmm.
which I still have, and I absolutely adore having them in my collection. But then it just I got into a very weird, depressive kind of state
Hmm.
uh, near the end of secondary school, going into my A levels.
Hmm.
A lot was happening, and slight trigger warning, but didn't happen exactly when I started watching your stuff, but it happened not long sort of afterwards. So I was dealing with some shit at school anyway, and then I lost a friend to suicide,
Hmm.
and it was a case of he was a essentially Jed will know what I mean here. Jed, the way I say I view you was the way I viewed him.
Hmm.
Uh and one of his last messages to me was basically how he believes in me and all this, and still means a lot to this day. I still have some stuff from that, but yeah, and it got so obviously starting a new school as well, starting my A levels, all this. Technically, the guinea pigs for this school because it was the first time this particular type was opening in the area.
Wow.
And I just wasn't feeling great. I was feeling quite low, and I started watching your stuff by then, and I'm pretty sure The Hunt had come out
Hmm.
by this point. But at the same time, I was just there like, yeah, I know. Then I decided I'm just going to binge your stuff again. I'm just going to binge the Lombard Brothers series again. And I don't know about it. It just really cheered me up. It meant a lot to me, and I say it was a grace of respect. But obviously, you guys weren't working with a budget.
Oh, we absolutely. I think we spent a grand total of like 50 quid on that entire fucking series.
But here's the thing: they were still compelling. The fact you had a small cast. You knew you had limitations, and you did the absolute best you could, and you actually looked at those limitations and went, okay, how can we make these work? And I don't know, just something about those fan films that really brought me in. And I think a big thing of it is because also in Cold Hearted Observers, there's that whole thing where the gist of it is, how Anthony's doctor acts more, serious,
Hmm.
but it's probably the calmer one out of the two of you.
Yeah.
And you're the one who acts, and the Nth Doctor was the one who acts more jokey, but he's the one who's hurting more inside.
Hmm.
And at the time, I was relating to that a lot. So I kind of felt myself drawn to your Doctor, and I was watching, like, kind of. Obviously, Cold doesn't come out at that point, but that's just the best way to explain. I was looking at a
Yeah.
Doctor who was acting very, like, quirky, very happy, but was, going through some stuff. And I think at the time, for me, going through that, it just hit me, and especially that's why Code Red became my favorite story. You,
Because
you,
it's about this character who's going through these things, but somehow is still managing to, he's not better, but you feel like he's getting better, if that
yeah,
makes
and
sense.
especially the fact you see because obviously Code Red has loads of flashbacks. You see examples where he's at his like peak quirkiness, and moments like that. And I remember that little mini Christmas episode you did. That was just you and your lovely wife Susan.
Oh yeah.
And there was that moment where it's like, oh, jokey, 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 and then it's suddenly very serious.
Mm.
And there was just something about that just really hit me. And it basically, I thought, you were producing Doctor Who stuff that just really meant a lot to me. And to this day, the writing was brilliant, and I loved the characters, and I actively wanted to see more. Like I remember, uh, I'm pretty sure, when I was watching your 50th, I was generally like, oh my god, there are other doctors. And no one, the thing is, even like no one in my house would really watch fan content. I'd struggle to get people to watch my fan content. So there was no one I could properly be like, guys, look at this, look at this. And
Oh god, where were the discords back then, man?
oh god,
Oh,
imagine.
oh god, I'm just imagining like little Baba George. If there had been things like Discord and the like,
I, I,
social media,
I
you would
was
have
the,
been my spoon.
I was the spoon before it was cool.
Oh god, you know we need to tell them that, right? We need to just
Yeah.
point this podcast at Spoon and go, Spoon, Spoon. George was you once upon a time.
Hello, young one. I was you once. I know where you've been. Trust me, the obsession never dies. You
Oh
just
god.
weed through the way. And it was funny because I eventually ended up meeting Matthew Mills, who obviously has been a big part of Man at Desk, but obviously, featured in like some Long Barrel Brothers content. And I met him, and I just by chance was like, "Hey, I'm a fan," and I didn't realize he had gone back to you and said, "Hey, I met a fan." So
Yeah, he was just like, hey, I met someone who knows our stuff, and I was like, oh, really? Cool. I didn't know anyone knew our stuff because I didn't think people watched our stuff.
little did you know, lurking in the shadows.
Fucking god, fucking god! Like, oh my fucking god! There he was, He was always waiting in the shadows where
Yeah,
none could see.
but yeah. Then
Oh god.
obviously, I just want to do my own fan content. Then got involved in obviously, I got involved in. I was making my own stuff. Then got involved in W 2012. Eventually, then I've left DW 2012, but I've worked with I've worked with Russell Production. I've worked with you. I've worked with TT, Overton, Dwem. I've worked with Dom, Ludwig Greenwood Martin on a few projects as well for Remnants, which
You've
genuinely
done a metric ton, basically.
which is nice. I like the fact I've been because a lot of people I get the same comment a lot. People go, "Oh, it's just fan stuff," or "It's just amateur productions. You're not actually, earning money or whatever." But I'm just there like I'm having fun with it, and at the end of the day, it's getting my name out there. But I'd rather, if I can look at this and say I've had a laugh.
You'd rather say that you had fun for one thing, but also I guarantee you that none of those guys have been on the BBC. You were.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
The clip of Nexus Point that got played on the BBC had you in it.
Oh, exactly, and that was so cool. I messaged my partner because obviously she's in it as well as my companion, and I was like, "So we've just been played on the radio." She was like, "We've done what now?"
I've still got that clip. Like, the guy sent me a WAV of that entire thing. Do you want it?
Yeah, I'll take the clip.
I'm fucking sending it to you. But yeah, so obviously that's like you and the fandom in general. Now, the story of getting you on Mad is a fairly long and involved one, and technically speaking, now it starts in the lockdown. But before it started in the lockdown, let's just rewind the clock a little bit back to the release of Eternal Darkness, which we're gonna point to one little detail in Eternal Darkness that I
Yes.
always point out, which is that when our man Mr. Guidera scans with a sonic screwdriver, he does a little Matt Smith flicky motion and then brings it up to his ear. Where did you get that from, Mr. Guidera?
Well, Mr. Rhodes, I picked that up from my favourite doctor, the Nth Doctor. I picked that up from you. And because that was always because here's the thing, for ages I used to always wonder how did the Doctor understand like readings from the screwdriver. Obviously with Matt's it's meant to be there's like he's looking at something. I always just assumed it's like a weird psychic thing, but when I was watching your stuff you would scan, put it to your ear, and I actually directed because it technically the first time it happened in a George Guide related project wasn't Eternal Darkness, it
Ooh.
was Weeping. It was the which is not my doctor, it's my successor, it's Michael Seeger's doctor. But at one point he scans a device, and I said to him in the direction, scan it and put it to your ear, like it's laying out the readings to you. Because I was like, hey, I want to include that reference because I always found that cool. And then, boom, we get to Eternal Darkness, and I thought it's literally like a Capaldi moment. It's finally, it's my go.
Oh god, and that's that was a fun little thing to note, because I do keep up with I keep up with a lot of different fan projects, because I feel like it's important to keep up with fan stuff. And to be fair, if I hadn't been keeping up with that particular fan project, I would never have noticed, I would never have noticed you do that, and I would never have thought, I know the name George Guidera. So I went back over our old comments and I was like, oh fuck, it's that guy. That's cool. And then I sort of, I think
You messaged me on Twitter because I remember. I think you had followed me a little bit beforehand, but then you
yeah.
would.
So on TikTok, and on Twitter, I was following you.
That was it, because I know we did like one or two little duets together, but that was mainly like you would do something, I would duet it, and you'd like comment and like it was all, and then just by chance, Eternal Darkness comes out, and I suddenly get a little notification pop on my phone. Jetty Rhodes has sent you a message, and I was like, what? What? That was literally it. I was like, what? What? I was like, and I was like, oh god, oh god, oh god, and it was just, yeah.
So yeah, so I think the exact chain of events was Eternal Darkness came out, then lockdown happened. I was on TikTok a lot. Galley Day, the first Galley Day happened. You and I had followed each other by then, because Galley Day, everybody was posting Doctor Who shit. And then that's when I reached out to you on Twitter and I was like, hey, I saw the thing. You did the thing. And you were like, yeah, I did the thing.
I remember it was you panicking at first. You were like, hey, just to confirm, I'm not just being egotistical, am I? And I'm like, no, you are reading this correctly. I did do the thing.
Yeah. Which, that was kind of a surreal thing for me, because well, I think I've mentioned probably a few times now, I don't exactly I don't anticipate people watching my shit. So when I realize that people are not just watching my shit, but sort of subtly referencing my shit, I'm a bit like, oh, I see. That's how we're doing this.
Thing is, I'm pretty sure there's an old script somewhere of like a really, really old script I produced where I reference meeting other like doctors, and I even make a little reference. So I know I made a reference to Chris Hoyle, and I'm sure I made a reference to you.
Aww, that's lovely.
Oh no.
Aww. But yeah, so yeah, what was I thinking? So I reached out to you on Twitter. I did a title sequencey thing as well, because title sequences are fun, and I enjoy doing them. I think that was about the period in time where everyone and their mother was making you a title sequence for the Blonde Doctor.
Everyone was like, "Hey, there's a new guy. Let's do titles," and I was like, "Ah."
And then yeah, we got talking over Zooms during lockdown, because lockdown, Zooms, lockdown. That's kind of how lockdown worked. And then, now, if I'm remembering now here's a question: did you do Prisoner of the Void before we started talking about properly collaborating?
No. It was definitely when we had started properly talking about collaborating, because you would message me on Twitter and a few of that. You said, "Hey, maybe one day we should do something together," and I was like, "Yes." Just yes, 100 billion times yes. Yeah, so you had messaged me, and obviously we said about collaborating, and then we just got messaging a bit more. That was it. We just got messaging a bit more. Then you said, "Hey, let's come on a Zoom," which I was so nervous about.
Really?
Yeah. Well, you're this guy I've idolized for ages. This guy I've looked up to for ages, and I was like, "Here's me," and I'm just there like, "Okay."
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I was properly nervous, but I was probably nervous from the perspective of, oh fuck me, this is a guy who actually watched my stuff. What if I'm a disappointment? What if I'm the disappointment? What if I become the thing that people say when they don't mean your heroes? Ah! So yeah, I was bricking it a bit too.
And yeah, and I think. See, I can't remember exactly when Prison of the Void happened, because
it came out in April, so we must have had. I swear to God, we must have had the conversations. No, hang on a second.
Argent Dawn was at least being planned. We were at least writing something together.
Yeah, so okay, so now if I'm remembering correctly, Argent Dawn started out as, that was when you were connected, then you disconnected, and we just went, fuck it, Argent Dawn's going to be one of the things for the new Doctor.
So for context, and I can say this without causing controversy, Well,
Yes.
probably will, but still. So for a while, my Instability Doctor was going to be the same as the Blonde Doctor. I was going to keep them consistent and
Hmm.
just, how to explain, produce stuff on my channel. Sort of like how, before obviously the split happened for everyone. The way Overton Audios would produce stuff that would link to Dio 2012. I was going to try and do something similar.
Yeah, and
Uh,
and you can sort of tell that when you listen to the way the Blonde Doctor in the first two.
yeah, yeah. The first two Blonde Doctor short trips were written with that in mind, and in fact, there's one of the references in the garden is a reference to when he describes like one of his previous incarnations that at the time was a previous incarnation cast in this stuff for Instability. So him and the Fairy Tale Doctor were going to be the same, but obviously, then I was told, hey, you want to do this stuff in the timeline? Can you actually just connect the stuff? So it became separate again, which was interesting because the Fairy Tale Doctor was going to have the depression subplot that the Blonde Doctor has, but then
Hmm.
because I established it in that canon, I was like, well, he can't have that anymore. I want him to feel different. So I got to explore more because I then messaged you about this and I said, so it's not going to be the Blonde Doctor. Is that an issue? And you were like, is that an issue for you? And I went, actually, have you met this other Doctor I've had in the pipeline for ages?
And to be honest, it's not my place to comment on the circumstances of stuff, and I'm not going to. But generally speaking, I dare say it was better overall to be collaborating with you at that point without having to be concerned about other people's universes and other
Mm.
people's timelines, because it
Well,
can get messy.
Well, the
And
only one you were worrying about at the time was mine, and because the Instability stuff was in its infancy, the only one I'd properly planned out was the Fairy Tale Doctors. It kind of wasn't that much of an issue. And then you asked me, "Hey, do you want to make a cameo in Prison of the Void?"
well, this is it. Is that oh god, I just realised we haven't yet talked about the fact that there's a tradition of Instability Doctors cameoing in,
Yes.
not necessarily of Instability Doctors cameoing in Man at Desk stuff now, because I know you cameoed first in Prisoner of the Void before you ever appeared on your own channel, and then Seeger appeared first in Nexus Point before he appeared in
Yeah.
your Christmas special.
And not necessarily Doctor, but Vin, played by Lex Tizard, my companion, Cammy made her first appearance as the
In
character.
Nexus Point. Oh god, we're not we yeah,
I,
so
I'd argue Katie Haynes, but I don't think she's meant to be the Instability incarnation she plays.
oh no, they are different
Yeah,
incarnations.
I
But
thought so.
but bear in mind, I did write your Christmas special. So
You did write my Christmas
so
special.
it's still stuff what I wrote and stuff in it,
What?
bruv.
In it, all right.
So yeah, so let's talk a bit about like man at desk stuff.
Yes.
So primarily,
Hmm.
you've appeared as the Fairy Tale Doctor in Man at Desk stuff, in sort of multiversal crossovers. So there have been
Yes.
3 instances of that. The first of which was your brief appearance in Prisoner of the Void, which
My John
is,
Hurt moment.
yes, your John Hurt moment, which we were incredibly grateful to get to have the Doctor that's referenced in that story appear in that story. We're grateful that it was you, because you did a really good job with it, and obviously that stuff has then gone on to inform some stuff that you're planning without going into too much depth. That's gone on to
Yeah.
inform some stuff that you're planning to do.
Yeah.
So that's a hint to anyone who gives a shit about the Fairy Tale Doctor. Go watch Prisoner of the Void.
I didn't want it. I didn't want it to go to waste. You set up this bit of a lore, and I was like, okay, and I worked out exactly how to make it work. So yeah.
The law. But obviously, then you appeared in the Nexus Point along with half the internet. Well, I mean, oh god, like for real, Nexus Point was one of those big things where I don't even know how to properly categorize it, because like obviously you weren't one of the main doctors.
No,
You were one of what we call the cameo doctors. So you
I
were
was to
there.
stand there, look pretty, or sound pretty.
Sound pretty, yeah. So you were there. Michael Seeger was there. Dominic Greenwood Martin was in there, and we had a whole host of like people who did absolutely wonderful work in that story. So that was an absolute joy to have you for that.
Had one of
In
my
some
favourite line deliveries as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The hello.
Hello. It's just
No, it's because when we read the script and I was there with Lex, as also we recorded the Doctor and Vin lines for you at the same time. Literally, we're just looking at this bit. We just had this image of me like just jumping out, going "Hi," and I was just like, "Screw it, okay, that's how I'm going to do
and then Seeger's just deadpan. Put your hand down.
it."
Yes, all of the yes. I love that.
It's also led to Lex's favourite description of me ever. The look, there's like a puppy who wants to hug everyone.
Aww. But and then obviously you also appeared in our most recent Christmas special, Crossing the Bridge, with Matthew Mills's Doctor, which I know was important to him to get that done. So that was really really lovely to sort of have that. I've got to ask, does it bother you that you've had almost as many like pure in terms of pure numerical count, almost as many, if not more, videos of your Doctor on Man at Desk than you have on Instability? Does that bother you at all?
No, because to an extent, I mean, this is slightly spoiled territory. I kind of consider them almost like cousins, if that makes sense, like loosely linked in the sense of you. Obviously, I mean, we've had one appearance of you already on the Instability channel. You were in Standby. With me and Katie, which you lovingly wrote and edited as well, and composed, obviously. But and we obviously have plans for crossovers, so I didn't mind that. And the thing is, because at the time as well I was developing stuff, and you and Matt, and like definitely you, and now Matt recently has been getting talks with me, and we're helping each other out, and you guys have been helping me a lot. It made no issue to me. If anything, I was like, cool, these are nice little things to add to, because I have little timeline videos for each little playlists for each Doctor that is meant to be their adventures in timeline order. So it was nice to be able to feel that more. And I think if I sat there and knew I wasn't going to do anything more for the channel, maybe it made me a bit upset. But I'm like, I got stuff planned, I got stuff in the work, so I'm feeling good about it. And to me, it's nice to be working with these Doctors who have meant a lot to me. Because I mean, as I said, I met Matt first in person. I got to tell him, I was a fan and everything, and now working with you, so it's nice. Plus, I think it's like an incomplete puzzle at the moment. So when the stuff, that links to Prison of the Void and the Christmas special, Crossing the Bridge, when they all come out, it will make a lot more sense, because
Hmm.
I know what's happened to the Fairy Tale Doctor at this point. So when that gets told, it all links up. It'll be just a really nice, coherent thing to listen to.
And speaking as somebody who's been like, I don't want to say like neck deep in helping Plan Instability's run, but I kind of have been neck deep in helping Plan Instability's
No,
run.
you have. You've been a lot of help, because and obviously we did that collaborative, that one project that we still need to currently make and get out, but obviously we done that first script together that we have ready to
Hmm.
basically go. And you asked me about we just got chatting as we were writing it. I explained to you some ideas I had, and lo and behold, so your Doctor, is very important to my Doctor. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, and I Fairy Tale is very important to my Doctor as well. But I think if we had to count Doctors who are important to the Nth Doctor, that are played by George Guidera, somehow I get a feeling that the Wythe Doctor would sort of trump that ever so slightly.
Yeah.
Now, so do you want to tell the story of how you got offered the role of my successor?
So put yourself in my position. You are a fanboy of this guy. You've met him, you've spoken to him, and he's just as nice as you thought he'd be. You have a good laugh, and at this point you're becoming like very close friends. And one night he's drunk out of his mind, and then there's just a moment of silence, and we're having a laugh. There's just a moment of silence. He just goes, George, George. And you may feel taken, but no. When he's drunk, he will just randomly start saying my name. Just
George.
yeah, exactly. And it was just suddenly like, I have something I need to ask you. Feel free to say no. but I really want to speak to you about this. And I go, okay. He went, my doctor's going to have an ending eventually. I have ideas and everything. I was like, yeah, okay. And he went, will you be my successor? I cried. I genuinely started tearing up. Yeah. And I thought to myself, I said yes, I was feeling really happy. I did think to myself, he's going to wake up in the morning and not remember this. No, he did. He very much did remember, but...
I remembered that. And the thing is, like, I am not generally speaking of the opinion, and I mean no disrespect to groups that do, but I am not generally speaking of the opinion that a vanity project, like a Doctor Who fan project, can survive without the person whose vanity it's serving, if that makes sense.
Mm.
But I knew that if I wanted to have a successor, and I did, and I wanted to have someone be my successor who, bluntly speaking, understood what he was taking on or she was taking on. He, obviously, in this case, but understood it and respected it and gave a shit about it. And there's no one on this fucking planet more qualified than George for that. In that vein, however, George,
Mm.
George,
Yes.
George, I have something I need to ask you.
Okay.
Do you want to do a Longbarrow Brothers 60th anniversary audio this year as the wife doctor?
Let me check my schedule. Yes, of fucking course I do.
Because I might. I stress this might. Feel free to say no. I might be thinking of taking the wife doctor onto the Longbarrow Brothers channel and doing audio volumes on there with him.
Oh, well, sorry, then I can't be on this podcast anymore. Thanks for having me, though.
Fuck! I mean, no. So obviously, Matt Mills came up with the interesting suggestion that you play his successor as well. Because as anyone who's gone and listened to the Nexus Point, go listen to the fucking Nexus Point. If you're on this channel listening to this
Please do.
podcast, go fucking listen. But if anyone who's listened to the Nexus Point will know, Matt Mills's timeline and my timeline are like directly parallel to one another. We are like the same number incarnation, but in like a split timeline from each other. And he had this very cool idea that the White Doctor exists in both universes, but with diametrically opposed personalities. And
it's to the point we've given them different names.
Yeah. We're not going to go too much into that because while the White Doctor does have content out in the form of We Surpass New Faces, which we'll talk about in a moment, the other Doctor hasn't yet. And one of the things that we're going to be working on in the next couple of months, I should think, is actually making some of the content that features these characters. And
all I will say is, me and Matt have started talking about this more, and I'm very, very interested into where this goes. We have come up with some really cool ideas for where my successor for him is going to go. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, and like I think one of the things that makes it interesting is, having a successor does change how you think about these things. And I suppose for you, so it's interesting because to sort of expand now into the broader work that you've done in the fandom a little, a lot of the content you've been the Doctor in has been written and sort of story led by other people. So like, I'm not going to count the stuff that I've done for Fairy Tale because that's been stuff I've done at your direction and you're running that. But like the Blonde Doctor stuff that's happening on Overton Audios, that's being show run by other people. They are the ones mostly thinking, where do we want to take this? They're consulting you. They're obviously really consulting you about it, but they are taking a lot of the creative lead, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it's actually the stuff that's already come out with the Blonde Doctor. That obviously I didn't have much say in. And, because the stuff was already written. This isn't I didn't have much say in it. No, nothing like that. Nothing bad. There's just the stuff was written and I went and did what I had to do. But in terms of like Blonde Doctor stuff that could be happening, no, I'm very much in the loop with it. I'm very much involved. It's just other people are taking, say, the writing,
The head
uh,
writing stuff is other people's prerogative, essentially.
but I'm coming in. It's basically I'm saying, okay, no, I don't want this, or I'd like this, or I'd like to discuss with the character. So it's a case of, well, I may not be doing a lot of the writing at the moment. It's definitely not like I've been pushed out. I do genuinely feel like my voice is heard in
Well,
it.
this is it though. Is my point sort of was that most fan film creators and fan creators in general, like take Dwem for example.
Yeah,
I'm the head writer on the Groovy Doctor because he's my doctor. Eamon is the head writer on the Kiwi Doctor because the Kiwi Doctor is his doctor. But actually, with the Blonde Doctor, like, are you the head writer on the Blonde Doctor stuff? Are you the chief creative onus behind that? And actually, that's almost a unique position for fan creation because I know there are some channels, so
it's
DW 2012, MB and Homeland, I think DDK, where the creative team doing the writing are different from the creative team in front of the cameras, but actually it's rarer than you'd think. So how does that
it,
feel for you, knowing, I guess, first and foremost, knowing that people, there's no other way to put it, knowing that people cared and fought enough for the Blonde Doctor to come back and they were willing to put the effort in to show run that and write that and make that happen in that way. How does that feel? And how does it feel being the actor, like chiefly the actor, as opposed to having to think about all of it and wear all the hats?
it means it does mean a lot in terms of both from just the fandom side of things. People wanting more Blonde Doctor, and that meant a hell of a lot to me. That genuinely did. Because I've said this in a lot of stuff I've been in. I came into doing the thing for Eternal Darkness, and I thought that'll be it. I'll come in, do my lines, that'll be it, and hopefully I'll do a decent enough job that people will look at that and go, that wasn't crap. I was not expecting the reaction it got.
So you're telling me you weren't expecting the fan vids from Spoon?
No, no. Can you really? You get a fan vid from Spoon and just life changes. But But the thing is, like, besides like the one person who was generally trying to get addresses out of me.
What?
Oh yeah, I once had a guy message me asking for the address of Luke Newman.
Was he 55 and pervy?
No, but here's the thing. The thing is, it's no secret that I've left DW 2012 under some interesting circumstances. I won't go into it, but
That's not what this is about, yeah.
yeah. But at the end of the day, no matter what, I'm not giving out his address to some random person. Well, and he was going like, "Oh, can you get Meg to message me or something?" I was like, "No."
Okay, George. If anyone ever asks, not that they will, but if anyone ever asks you for my address, it's 123 Fake Street.
What if your wife messages me?
My wife does message you. She Snapchats you. I don't have Snapchat. I
That's a,
don't use Snapchat.
that's a you problem. But yeah,
That is a me problem.
yeah. So came back and I did the appearance for Raston Productions. I did the Endgame appearances, and I thought that would be that was nice. I thought, okay, I go out on a somewhat high note, and the thing is, when it looked like that was it for me as Blonde,
Hmm.
I had written, and a lot of people, well, you've seen it, and a lot of like the
Yeah.
people now currently working on the Blonde, I wrote an entire little scene of the Blonde Doctor, my version of Blonde Doctor, getting erased from existence. It was a bittersweet thing. As he saves the day, but at the cost of basically erasing himself. And he says a thing saying, you know, another person may take your spot in the timeline or something like this, blah, blah, blah. Because I didn't know what was happening at the time because he
Hmm.
was one was sort of in a limbo. I knew I was no longer a part of DW 2012. I had walked away from that, but
Yeah.
I didn't know. So, to anyone thinking I got fired, no, I walked away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, you know, and here's the thing: I said to Luke, these are your options. Anything you've already shot with me, or you have, feel free to use.
Yeah.
If you don't want to, that's fine. I am not going to stop you though,
Yeah.
because I did that. I'm not going to do the thing. Um, Again, at this point, remaster for Series 2's not come out yet, so I can't confirm what's going on. But I have a feeling it's not me. I have a feeling, there might be changes. And you know what? Fine, that's fair. I'm not. Yeah,
That's their call. That's fine.
yeah. I'm not going to a thing and say, oh, I should. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this was the position that it was in, of the case of I didn't know what was happening.
And you
I
thought that you would end it as the character. That interpretation.
essentially, yes. I thought, someone else could come in and fill in my role as I filled in the role before, or I didn't know. So I had written a scene where Blonde essentially gets his wish. He basically stops existing, but it's to save the day. And everyone who's read it has basically, their reaction was no.
No.
Yeah,
No.
not because of. I would
No,
love
because it was
to.
bad. No, okay, so I have read this script, dear listeners, and George is a fantastic writer. I would not be working with him if he was not a fantastic writer. But the thing is, and the thing is, George has had to do this for me sometimes. Sometimes we, as writers with mental health issues, sometimes as writers with mental health issues, we put our depression on the page in a bit too raw of a fashion, and that's kind of the way that I think a lot of people read the Blonde script that he was writing, and you know, and okay,
Which made sense. Which made
leaving
sense.
aside the mental health stuff though, I think it would have been a real shame if you had never come back to the Blonde Doctor, because I think the thing that I think a lot of people find compelling about the Blonde Doctor, and the thing is, obviously you gave a very good performance in Eternal Darkness with somebody else's. There's no getting around that. That was lines written for somebody else initially, you know.
Mm.
I, but I think what was always interesting to me about your Doctor was the stuff that you did in those lockdown shorts, which are now on Dwem, was you brought a sense of vulnerability to the character that I think a lot of people really respected. And in a weird way, and apologies if this sounds egotistical, it sort of brings it full circle. You got into my Doctor because you you were enticed or impressed by
Yeah.
the vulnerability and the relatability of. I mean, in a weird way, it's a bit like that meme floating around Twitter right now. He just like me. He just like me for real.
Exactly. No, but that was it. It was a case of
A lot
like
of people loved that about the Blonde Doctor, though. Is this is a character who was talking about why am I here? Why am I the one having to live this life when other people are more worthy than I am? I think a lot of people looked at that and were able to really relate to that, and that was something unique to that interpretation of that Doctor and your writing, which I think a lot of people really connected with. And if we'd never seen that again, if that version of the character had never come back, I think that would have been a damn shame. So I'm really glad that it's back.
I know everyone in the Discord was not annoyed at me, but there was a slight worry because the common catchphrase at the time was I kept just putting in the Discord hashtag Yeet Blonde.
Yeah, which again though, it's a case of you bring your depression into the writing that you do, and it's sometimes difficult to see where you're writing a character who is experiencing things ends, and you just putting.
As I've said, the garden was the hardest thing for me to record because I genuinely remember recording it and having to go away afterwards because I got very upset after doing it because that was um I mean there if I mean am I allowed to go a little bit deep here?
You can go as deep as you need to.
Okay,
I,
so
I, I,
I
I
am giving a
understand
trigger
at all.
warning here. I'm about to talk about some thing. I the time the garden came out and was being made, I was in a extremely low point. I was done. I felt awful. People very close to me basically shit on me essentially. They really fucked me over, and I was feeling I was feeling quite suicidal. Oh no, I tell you this. I was having suicidal thoughts. I can't sit down and say no. I was planning anything. I wasn't.
Hmm.
I'd like to stress this. I'm not. And yes, I do have mental health issues, but I'd like to stress anyone listening to this. I am currently seeking help. So I just want to make that clear. But I sat there and I decided I want to write this. I needed to vent somehow.
Yeah.
And at the time when he does that, um I can't remember. There is a part of that that is purely improv. In at one point in it, as I'm talking, I think when he's going to the ward, it's about people don't need me, no one needs me. That bit was improv. That was just me in the moment, just saying that because that was exactly how I was feeling at that point. And that's why it was hard. That was really really hard for me to record, and here's the thing though, it was I think what's harder was when I was doing the ending for it, I didn't want to end it with he's cured, his mental health is better now, because it's not how it works, sadly. But I didn't want to end it on such a depressing note. So I wanted to give it that sort of optimism that yes, he is struggling, he is broken at this point, but he is trying to find a way. And the fact that's connected to people really, really meant a lot. I've had people message me about it, and because here's the thing, just because I have mental health issues doesn't mean I instantly think I'll be an expert at writing at them. I did not want to ever write that and basically be insulting to people who have it. I didn't want to make it sound like it's an easy fix. And one of the other things that I've been in was when I did a Doctor Who Remnant story for Dominic Green and Martin. I think it's the
The
Last
Last
Brothers.
Brothers on Earth.
Yeah, that's it. That story. Dom reached out to me to be in that because he said, "Look, this is the subject matter, and I know you will take this seriously." And that was genuinely one of my favorite things I've been a part of. That was a really well done story, and I
It
think,
did.
it showed me, hey, yeah, you can tackle these issues in this. Not so much in Doctor Who. I know you can do it in Doctor Who, and that's so. I'm not sitting here saying, "Oh yeah, I'm shocked you could tell these stories in Doctor Who." It was more the fact I can tell these stories in a fan produced way. That was my thing, and yeah. So then when people started campaigning for me to come back, and eventually, boom, there was that big surprise in Crimson Hunter.
Yeah, which was, that was fun to see. So, or
And
fun to
that,
hear, I should say.
yeah. Well, I think I'm kind of glad that there was that gap because it gave me time to really flesh out how. Because obviously, when I first portrayed the character, it's just my voice. I'm just talking, normally, like maybe ever so slightly deeper, but nothing too you'd really register. And then I was like, well, hang on. If I have all these different doctors, I need to differentiate them. So that's why the blonde doctor has a more, posh voice now. He talks a bit more like this because I thought it works with what I want him to do. I wanted him to sort of have this light-hearted kind of Colin Bakery approach in the sense of he can have these kind of yes egotistical kind of moments, but I always take little bits of the third Doctor and the sixth Doctor when I was kind of approaching the voice.
No, absolutely. And I
And
think,
I have a more of a grasp, and the fact that now people who are really invested in this character, like such as yourself, like Connor, Aidan, Eamon Longman, they've all come together and making these things. And the fact I just need to shout this out here: Geeky Lucy, who has been writing, and at the moment, I think due to uni life and work being, she's had to take a break, but she's done an amazing piece of Blonde Doctor fan fiction, which
oh, I
acts
did,
like
yeah.
his post regeneration story, and you
We
know
referenced that.
yeah, exactly. That is a reference in one of the what was it? The Fires of
Fires
Perdition.
of Perdition, yeah, which
Yeah,
was the fourth of the short trips that we released.
yeah, the volume one of short trips. You have the line where the Doctor references that the blonde Doctor says the scarf that he wears was given to him by Charlie. In
Mm.
Geeky Lucy's fan fiction, when the Doctor's picking his outfit, he bursts out in basically what you see in Eternal Darkness, but he has a top hat on. She takes the top hat and puts and Charlie gives the blonde Doctor her scarf, and I was like, we're making this canon.
It's canon, bitches. So yeah,
Yes, this is a long-winded way. The thing is, I think the fact I'm still firmly in the process of what's being made. I think that's what keeps me. I don't feel like I'm being pushed out. People come to me and say, "Hey, well, considering this was a blonde doctor, does this work for you?" And if not, we'll sit down, we'll discuss this. I've been really big in sitting down discussing like possible storylines and stuff, and yeah, so I think it's nice, especially because I've made it no secret, I've been going through a lot of burnout recently. So it's been
mm.
nice to have, in a way, at least at the moment, not be solely relying on me.
No, that's absolutely fair. And yeah, and I suppose to sort of then step from that back to the fairy tale doctor, who we mustn't forget the fairy tale doctor because we like the fairy tale doctor. He's a really good character. So you've had what seems now almost to be like an annual tradition of Christmas specials, which I think are really,
Yes.
really cool. And obviously, I don't think I'm spoiling anything here by saying more stuff is coming in
Oh,
2023.
100%.
Funny that it's almost like it's the 60th fucking anniversary year or something. Ah! So yeah, so for the 60th anniversary year, stuff is happening with the Fairy Tale Doctor. You're going to be
Yes.
producing content for that.
Yes. Hopefully, if all goes well, we will get a 60th anniversary special out. But regardless, we do have episodes currently getting ready to be made with the Fairy Tale Doctor. I have I have James York who's writing a script. I have Josh Griggs, Eamon Longman. We've obviously done one together, and I'm also handling one by myself.
Yep.
There's a lot to come, and I think it means a lot because obviously I started when I doing my fan films as a wee little George, and that's always been the Doctor I've sort of tried to push. Yes, he's developed as time's gone on. Obviously, I started making him when I was a kid,
But
and
there is like the thing is, having seen pictures of you when you were little wee better George, and looking at pictures of you as the Doctor now, the through line is there, like the rough essence of him. Like
yeah,
even when you look at, especially when you look at Blondie and then you look at Fairy Tale, the through line is there. These characters look like
yeah,
they came from the same through line. It's a bit different with Wythe. It's a bit different with Wythe because he's deliberately designed to be different.
yeah. What wife was? I need to make this a contrast, not just from my other Doctors, but a contrast from you.
Hmm.
I couldn't just bring in the fairy tale Doctor because as much as we, obviously our doctors know each other and stuff, but as much as I have the same face, I didn't want to suddenly bring on the same personality because I thought,
You
well,
didn't want you didn't want a 14th Doctor it. Let's put it
in
that
the
way.
greatest of respect, I didn't want to just be like, well, why carry on? Why not just go watch the Instability stuff?
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
Mm,
And so sort of to sort of close out because we're coming up on the hour-ish mark, I should think, edits notwithstanding. So obviously you're my successor
mm-hmm.
and you're Matt Mills' successor.
Yes.
Uh so to talk about stuff that you're doing with Mad, in the future,
Yes.
with the 60th anniversary year and the stuff that we're doing for the 60th anniversary, can you tell us a little bit about your involvement in Man at Desk's 60th anniversary stuff?
The question is, how much can I say?
This is nothing. The birds will wait. You will see soon that the one is planned for you and for the Kaiser.
So yeah, all that's going to be really interesting to see.
Mm.
And obviously, like, I've literally just asked you while we're recording about doing stuff for Lungbarrow Brothers' 60th. And for those of you who sort of don't know, I can't imagine you not knowing because I have a very small audience. People ought to know. Lungbarrow Brothers is where both Matt Mills and myself started. And so correct me if I'm wrong, because we were talking about doing stuff with Lungbarrow Brothers for a while. Like we were
Yeah.
talking about you coming over to that channel to do stuff. That's fallen through because of the specters of COVID, travel, money, all this bollocks.
And life, just
Life,
life.
but without wishing to get sort of like, on my own ass about it, does it feel really fucking weird to be asked to be not just my successor, but a Lungbarrow Brothers Doctor with that ident, with that logo, with that
100%. 100%. And I don't think this is a spoiler because we were meant to film this in lockdown, but obviously life got in the way. To me, it was I told you when you would cast me, you obviously knew that Code Red was my favorite story, and I would keep making jokes about Meglos to you because of it. And it was when you had written that little mini Meglos script for me, just that short little mini Meglos thing, and I just stared at that, and it suddenly hit me. I was like, "Oh God."
You're a Longbarrow Brothers doctor.
Yeah, it's like, you know how I told you in We Surpass, the moment that gets me is when the Nth Doctor comes in and goes, hang on, which one's the one I know? Oh wait, I know that waistcoat. Just like, you're the one, and I'm just like, hi, and that suddenly made me go, oh god, we have history. And and not only that, just knowing, I think it was when me and you got bored one day, and for a laugh, we read Time Crash as the Nth and Wife Doctors, and it was just moments like that. It was the look at this bone structure, because one day you're going to be shaving it, and I suddenly had this moment of, one, we realised the 10th Doctor's lines do not work for the Wife Doctor whatsoever, because 10 is too happy, Wife is not. He's a tired boy. But no, it's just, oh my god,
you've made it, boy.
Legit. This is something I've wanted for ages, and it's, like little things like I always wanted to work with Dominic Greenwood Martin in something. I've done that. I've wanted to work with Connor in something. I've done that. I've always wanted to work with you and Matt and and Anthony, who hopefully we'll get to have some interaction with in the future. Performing-wise.
I mean, to be fair, obviously we were discussing stuff with Anthony. So you've spoken with him.
Oh yeah, no, I've spoken to him, but I mean, like performance-wise,
I mean, technically you have. Nexus Point.
True.
You did. Hey, add Jack Anderson.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess with Jack Anderson as
well. So yeah,
whose hair could rival mine. Well, no, he surpasses me. He surpasses me. I bow to his hair.
I mean, I'm fucking sorry. I used to have a thing about nicknames. I'm the groovy doctor on Dwem. I can't legitimately hold my hand up and say I have a thing about nicknames anymore. But I think it is kind of hilarious that, everyone was pointing at George and going, oh, he's the blonde doctor. Look at his long blonde hair. And then meanwhile, Jack Anderson exists.
Oh,
and just to emphasize that Jack Anderson exists. Every time I say the word exists like that, a picture of Jack Anderson with his fucking blonde locks is going to appear because Jack Anderson exists.
Future Jed's just there like, oh god, why, past Jed?
Why did you do this to me, you fucking ginger prick?
Well, I'll tell you why. He did it because Jack Anderson exists!
And before we forget, obviously, Man at Desk Productions exists! Oh god! And to leave off, we're recording this about a week after that particular panel's come out and Man at Desk Productions does not exist. So how does it feel to be on a non-existent podcast talking to a non-existent person on a non-existent channel about non-existent things?
Are any of us real? Are any of us really real, Jed?
Fuck, the Matrix has us. Oh god. So this has been the Mad Pod, which has been madder than usual because, me and George. So thank you very much, George Guidera.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I am going to link below because there's a lot of things to link with George because he's been in a lot of things. He gets around, that hussy. I'm
such a hoe.
Yeah, I'm gonna link Dwem. I'm gonna link Overton Audios because the Blonde Doctor is coming back there eventually at some point in something somehow. Some of which may be traumatic to younger viewers. If it's come out by now, you'll know what I mean.
And Spoon will make 1 million edits.
Oh, poor Spoon. But yeah, so he's coming back to Overton. Obviously, he's on Dwem, so stuff is coming out on Dwem. By now, at the very least, I'm fairly certain. The 2 things you've appeared in with the Groovy Doctor will have been out by the time this comes out.
Yay.
So that'll be a thing. But obviously more stuff is coming later in the year as well. And then obviously the Fairy Tale Doctor stuff on Instability. So I'm going to link Instability as well. So yeah, check out George on every fucking thing. And then, yeah, obviously, if you've enjoyed this video, if you enjoy our content, likes, subscribes, comments,
ring that bell.
Feed the algorithm gods. You'd better feed the algorithm gods because they're getting fucking cranky down there. So yeah, thank you everybody so much for watching, and as always, we shall see you again in the next Mad Pod.
Oh yeah,
TTFN, motherfuckers! I'm gonna stop now.